Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for submitting some questions about the COVID-19 vaccination. And just before I forget to tell you, anything that you hear in this recording, you're more than welcome to use in your compare and contrast essay, and then also for the reflective essay at the end of the semester. And thank you very much, Professor Daisy McQuiston of Nursing, for joining us this morning. I know you are the busiest person on the planet, and I know it means a lot to our community that you're taking the time to address some of these questions.
Absolutely. I am so excited to be here and share how all of this is working and answer these questions. I really appreciate the great questions that I received.
Very cool.
Thank you.
I feel like I should know this, but I don't. How long have you been at Delta?
15 years.
Gosh, I've been here 10.
Yes.
And
Yep.
it's very, obviously it's surreal to go to the parking lot where I've been many times. And
yes.
There's this vaccination tent.
There it is. It's our new home.
Oh my God. All right, well, if you are watching, you might be able to see the chat here, and I will just quickly touch on these questions. If you happen to not see your question here, I did consolidate a couple of them, and I tried to make them a little concise. But if anything, if you don't hear what you wanted to hear or we're looking to hear, just email me and we can sort something out. And so the first question, why does the vaccine work?
So there are multiple types of vaccines that are available, and we know that Johnson & Johnson just got theirs approved through the FDA over the weekend, which is exciting. So we have the mRNA one, which is going to be our Moderna and our Pfizer, that were approved initially. They work a little bit different, probably more different in a way than what we're accustomed to. But they are not new, but it's not a new process. We've been working on this process for at least over 10 years since SARS-1 came through. So the difference between them is with the mRNA, it takes a piece of the messenger RNA when replication happens. And we've taken what is called a spike protein from the SARS-2. We've taken that and we put it into the messenger RNA. So when we give the vaccine, the body starts, as it's starting to replicate those cells, it moves that kind of into the body's recognition system or that immune system to kind of help take what, instead of exposing somebody to it, just the spike protein is exposing people to it and creating an immune response. With the Johnson & Johnson, it's a little bit different because that is what's known as a viral vector, meaning that it is either, they label it as a weak or a dead. And for the Johnson & Johnson, it is a dead or inactive virus that's in the body, or that what we're going to give. So it is all about how the immune system responds to this. So is it through a spike protein, through the mRNA, or is it through a deadened or weakened virus, which is probably the one that we're more used to, because that's what our a lot of our vaccines that are created, that same style. Flu vaccines every year are created through a inactive virus.
Yes, I got the flu vaccine this year, so I'm just all vaccine done. But no, for somebody like me who's not particularly science literate or up to date on vaccine technology, it's very, very helpful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Next one here. What are the long-term side effects of this vaccine and how safe is it?
So right now, the vaccines are approved through emergency use authorization, which means that there's still been testing that has gone on and clinical trials, but it doesn't take as long to get everything approved, which is truly what we want in science. We have a tendency to wait and wait and wait and wait, and it takes so long for things to get approved that there really is a delay in care. And it changes. I mean, people die every day, every minute. And it doesn't matter if it is a medication that we're waiting to approve or if it is a vaccine that we're waiting to approve. The longer it takes to approve these, the more people that are likely to die from that disease process. So really the steps that it went through it didn't go faster. It really is exceptional. Long-term side effects, right now what we know is we have short-term side effects. They happen typically within that first hour. If you're going to get the vaccines, we usually within the first 15 to 60 minutes that a person would have a reaction. There are not any anticipated long-term side effects for getting this vaccine. But what we do know is COVID, if you get COVID, you end up having long-term side effects. So in a sense, short-term gain getting a vaccine versus long-term side effects getting the disease process.
And that did come up later on. Someone did want to know the comparison between the COVID experience and the vaccine experience. And it sounds like the vaccine, from what we know so far, is like the better choice.
It is. It is the better choice to get a vaccine versus getting COVID. And we're seeing them actually change, we call them long haulers that get COVID because we don't know how somebody's going to respond. If Lauren got COVID, you may have a different appearance with it versus me. If I got it, I may have a different appearance. And what we see is that some people are having long-term effects in their hearts, in their lungs, and that changes the way that they live. And of course, my battery is running low. Hang on.
Of course it is. Yeah. We're all running low. It's true.
I am so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. And as an aside, I can just share with you and anyone else who would watch this clip. I received my second dose of the vaccine yesterday at Delta. And Daisy can correct me if I'm outdated here, but at the moment we have the Pfizer vaccine. And I did wake up today not feeling so hot, actually. But I just feel like I have a cold. I feel like I have a cold, I'm at a minor fever, I'm a little congested, I have some swollen glands, but I also knew to plan for this. And I do have like a lighter week. And from what I understand, by tomorrow, I'm like, we sorted out. And so fine, I've gotten a common cold and I feel a little icky, but you know, I'll be right. Is it just Pfizer at Delta at the moment? You're on mute.
Yes. So right now we are vaccinating with Pfizer at our main clinic sites. And then when we have the National Guard coming this weekend, they will be vaccinating with Moderna. Okay. So the difference is with Moderna, you know, both mRNA vaccines have to be kept at a low temperature, very low temperature. The difference is with Pfizer, we have to dilute it before we can use it. With Moderna, you don't. So there's a dosage difference, doesn't matter the dosage, but you're still getting the same quantity of spike protein. So they just have a little bit different mechanisms. Moderna is much faster to give because you don't have the dilution process.
This is a little outside here, but why does it have to be kept so cold?
In order to
know this.
Yeah. In order to keep the mRNA process and the spike protein viable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I saw that story of nurses in another part of the country panicking because they had shots they couldn't give them out. And they just pulled people over on the road to not waste it.
Yes. And sometimes that happens, you know, we're looking for an arm to put it in because you never want to waste that vaccine. Yeah. From the Pfizer package, we get 6 doses. From the Moderna, we get 10 doses. So once you enter that vial and start pulling out the vaccine, you have to use it. Once it's once it's thawed, you only have a certain window of when it has to be utilized. So it is fast. Like we want people to get this. So, and we don't want to waste a single dose.
Mhm. So if your parents or friends or coworkers have an appointment, please help them get there at any cost, you know, and scheduling is very challenging, of course, for
It
sure.
is. And we, you know, we're a drive-through clinic
Mhm.
at our site, which we can move people through in a faster rate. We can get that vaccine in somebody's
Mhm.
arm, and they can then move on to the rest of their day.
Mhm.
They don't have to get out of their car, which is so
That
great
is nice.
because yeah, it is. And yes, it's cold out there, but it's so worth it. I love, I am not an outdoor person, but I
Mhm.
love that I can be out there helping somebody. My heart is so warm when I leave, and the thank yous that you get are irreplaceable. So I think that this is fantastic. I think that Delta has done a wonderful thing to create this safe environment for people to get their vaccine.
Yeah, it's very moving to be a part of this, you know, for sure. And
It
thank you
is.
again for making the time today. In true Zoom fashion, my dog's here, so we'll see if she comes in to visit in a minute, but now she's gone. Um, I was in and out of the Delta vaccine site in a half hour both times. Okay, it's a well-oiled machine. Thank you for that so much.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
And yesterday, excitingly, we doubled the amount of people that we vaccinated.
Nice.
We vaccinated 341 people yesterday, and we will be up to 500 next week.
You scheduled it this way so I don't have to do my faculty meeting today, didn't you? It is Wednesday, but no. So let me get back to what is next here. Anything about sterility or infertility as a result of the vaccine? She's frozen. She'll be back in a second, I'm guessing. I'm not at Stonehenge, by the way, but I just I thought it would be something. And we're back. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's
So
okay.
as far as sterility, there has not been any proof that there is any link to any type of sterility with the vaccine. I know that there was a concern about that. However, there has not been anything that has been linked to it. But let me say, if you get COVID, there is a link, especially in men, that sperm counts do decrease during like a COVID time frame. So it is, I can't remember if it was like a 3-month window, but there's a time frame where sperm counts do go down. So usually
with COVID, not with the vaccine.
Correct, with COVID, not the vaccine. There is nothing that has been linked to the vaccination as far as sterility of in females or in males.
That's a question that just would not have occurred to me. And so I do appreciate that the student asked me for sure, or asked us. Let me see what else we have here. I know that the vaccine, starting with high risk and first responders, when will it be available to regular students?
The exciting news is that with the Johnson & Johnson availability, and we should get in the community within the next week or so, that they expect by June that we should have vaccines available to everybody. In the state of Michigan, starting yesterday, March 1st, or excuse me, it started on March 1st. They have increased the availability of vaccines to some food service workers, especially in certain meat processing places. So we're starting to see an increase. The other thing that I want to add is, there's more and more science that is coming out to say that when you get the vaccine, you're less likely to actually transmit it to somebody else. And we're seeing that the CDC has now recommended that, if you're vaccinated with both vaccines or both doses, or, the single dose of the Johnson & Johnson, that the quarantine time isn't there, which is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I think that we're coming to realize that this vaccine will help us get back to our normalcy or close to it.
That's incredible to hear, actually.
Mm-hmm.
My gosh, thank you for telling us that. A student is traveling in late March, wants to know if it would be wise to try to get the vaccine before then. And I don't know who asked this and what age group they're in. So I don't know if you have any light to shed on how quickly people can get this in general, if they're not high risk or a first responder.
So as of right now, there is, unless you're in healthcare, there really isn't the significant availability or over the age of 65. So you kind of fall in that group of, where do you work and what is the access? We know that there is significant variability to vaccine access. It could be, they live in a remote setting, or they live, or they're too young. So I would say get your name on the list. As soon as you can get your vaccine, I would encourage you to get your vaccine. And I would encourage anybody to get the vaccine, not just because I am administering it. I feel that it has given people a sense of protection, and it increases individual protection, but it also is going to decrease hospitalizations and decrease some of the transmission. Even if you get COVID when you are fully vaccinated, the big piece of it is you're less likely to have significant side effects, significant symptoms. I would rather have, a stuffy nose than be ongoing sick and end up having one of those long hauler symptoms from COVID. So for me, I was like, well, why wouldn't I get it? And I evaluate every single vaccine that I get. Do I get it? Do I not get it? Because, we always have that sense of I'm putting something in my body. Evaluating it is really important, and saying, does this make sense to me? And for me, it made sense. And I feel that for every person that I give that vaccine to, it makes sense.
Absolutely. And everyone needs to just decide, and hopefully they have access to all the information they would need to do that. Somebody else asked, just in general, how to sign up.
Sure. So you want to, based on where your county is. So, Saginaw County, there is not a document that you can fill out yet, but for Bay County there is, and for Midland County there is. Getting access to, putting your name on the list. And there's Meijer that you can get on, there's Walgreens, there's CVS, there's all sorts of places that you can get your name on that list. That way, when it is available, you'll be able to get it as soon as possible.
And if someone were to do Meijer or Rite Aid, I hear about a lot of people getting in at Rite Aid or having older people who get in, should they also do the health department registration. I know Saginaw doesn't have a web-based one yet.
Yes, yes, you want to get your name on as many lists as possible, because when they start pulling from that area, just don't confirm if, don't confirm one place and confirm another, but it's okay to be on multiple lists.
Because the idea is somebody will call you and give you a slot, and at that point you can say no.
Correct.
And as we've seen, there's going to be lots of people who are waiting. So
Yes.
you definitely don't want to hog your spot there. All right, looks like we talked about companies already, and I think that, oh wait, no, I don't want to leave this one out. I have a student who's 15 and wants to know why they can't get it.
Oh, very good. So interestingly enough, originally the studies that were done on these vaccines were done in people that were 18 and older or 16 and older, depending on the vaccine. So what we are doing is they are now collecting data as young as 6 years old. So they are vaccinating children and gathering some data, looking at what is safe versus, not safe with any of that population. And I would expect to see that it starts to open up to a greater amount of age groups. Again, we look at the Johnson & Johnson, it follows the same pattern as our flu vaccine, and we give that to very young children. So it's just at this moment, that's who was approved, because that's what we started with, was an aged population versus the younger population.
And with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it feels like getting ready for a big rollout. I can see how there might be more opportunities for somebody younger to get it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe we're getting, I think it's in Bay County, we're getting like 1,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson next week. Like, I mean, they are really rolling this out, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is.
It is, yeah, for sure. Cool.
I mean, that's a huge dent in getting those people vaccinated.
For sure. Let me just quickly eyeball the chat here in case I've left one out.
I think there was a question about an allergy.
Yeah, well, yeah. What allergies does it stir up?
So it doesn't really stir up an allergy, but what we do know is that people that are allergic to polyethylene glycol, which is PEG, which is the same item that we use in a colonoscopy prep to make somebody clean out their bowel system. They use it as a stabilizer. And then the other one is polysorbate. So if you have those allergies, we don't give it. But anything else, we give it. It doesn't matter if somebody has had an anaphylactic reaction to a drug of some type. We just require them to be a 30-minute wait after they receive the vaccine. It doesn't require anything different. It's just those two that if they have those, then we're not going to vaccinate them on site.
Right. So anything related to wheat or grass, like a food allergy, it's fine?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. If you see an allergist, we encourage you to confirm with your allergist that they feel a good choice for you. But I can tell you that I've vaccinated a significant number of people that tell me, oh, I get my allergy shot in this arm, So no, we've had lots of people that have significant allergies to environmental things and have done very well without any complications getting the vaccine at our site.
Science is cool. Thank you. Thank you for telling us about that. Then someone was asking, how is this different than other yearly vaccines in terms of how it's administered and the plan for doing it?
So at this point, we don't know what next year looks like. We don't know if, are they going to change that if you've had COVID, you only need one vaccine? We don't know if you're going to need a booster. We don't know. And yes, that may be frustrating to many people, But what we are doing right now is we're living very much in the moment. We know what it does right now, but we don't know what it's going to do next year as far as protection. We have to weigh things out. That's why if you get your vaccine, you'll sign up for a data collector. It's called vSafe.
Mhm.
And it allows for for the CDC to continue to collect ongoing information about how a person responds to the vaccination, and if they are, if they're exposed to COVID, did they get it?
Mhm.
And I know there was a question about, there was the doctor
A
that got
doctor
the,
who got it. Yep. I
yeah.
remember that.
So the great thing is, and I don't know, I mean, maybe not great, but your immune system takes a little bit of time for it to respond. So you will never get COVID from the vaccine itself. If you got COVID, it is from an exposure. And if you weren't fully protected. So what we see is with the first dose, you're about 50% protected
Mhm.
after 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks. After the second dose of the mRNA type, we're looking at about a 95% efficacy or effectiveness after that 10-day to 14-day.
Mhm.
Probably what had happened is the person didn't have their second dose
Mhm.
and they were exposed before their immune system responded.
Mhm.
So we have to see that change in their immune system. So as you stated earlier, you aren't feeling all that great, but that is your immune system working itself up to get to that 95% effectiveness. One thing that I want to add, and I would encourage you guys to do a little bit of digging on. Every year we give out the flu vaccine.
Mhm.
It's a hit or miss. It really is a hit or miss with the flu vaccine. But we do it because we know that it may help someone in the long run, right?
Mhm.
It will help you hopefully prevent you from getting hospitalized. With the flu vaccine, by the time they actually run the numbers about the effectiveness, we're looking at averages about 23% effective.
Okay. Wow.
So what's so misleading is people are like, well, I want a vaccine that's 100% effective. It's not going to be there.
Well, I want a pony, but I get also why people would be frustrated.
Yeah. So just recognize that even our flu vaccine that we give every single year isn't 100% effective.
Mhm.
It starts off about 33, 40%, like it'll range 33 to 40% average. And then as it progresses, by the time that we get to the end of the season, we realize that it was only about 23% effective.
Mhm.
That's a very low, that's
It's low, yeah.
yeah, it's a very low number, but we feel like, oh, everybody should get, the flu vaccine because it does help.
I mean, I had grown up and in my earlier adulthood, always hearing that the flu vaccines weren't that great, but I got it this year because Dr. Fauci told me to.
Right.
And so maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, I don't know, but hey, I'm in a good spot. And so I want to underline this because I want to make sure people hear this because it might be crucial. You really do need to continue to lie low as best you can between the first and second shot
You
and
do.
take as many precautions as possible.
You do. Just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean that you still don't wear a mask. I mean, you still need to wear a mask. You still need to social distance. You need to follow those rules for this time frame.
Mhm.
It will help us get back to where we want to be. If we don't take those steps, we're not going to get there.
Mhm. So the
Vaccinate.
doctor probably just couldn't control being exposed to something probably at work, or I mean, I don't know, but
Yes.
anything could
Yes.
have happened.
Yep. He could have been vaccinated that day and then got
Yeah.
exposed. You know, I mean, your immune system takes a good 10 to 14 days for it to get to where it needs to be after an exposure.
Mhm. I just continue to feel so lucky that I've not been touched by this. And I know that's not true for a lot of my students and a lot of our community.
Right, right.
Never in life did I think we would be having a talk like this.
I know a year ago, life was very, very different, very different.
And as my students know by now, if they're caught up on e-learning, they're going to pursue this historical archival project. And so hopefully this will plant some seeds also in terms of who they might want to interview for inclusions in what we call the pandemic storybook.
Awesome.
Because we're trying to make a picture of our region in this highly unusual time. And so my students in the fall conducted interviews. Everybody interviewed 4 people. Now my students will do 4 interviews, and we're trying to get everybody. So healthcare workers, professionals, the person who does your DoorDash, the person who's not been affected at all, or is just hanging out at home and missed out on high school. So it's
Right, right.
yeah, we're just trying to, Delta's about learning at the end of the day, and so here we are trying to promote learning and continue to educate ourselves and others. Um, and is there anything else that you would like students to know?
I just would like to say, do some self-reflection, figure out what is best for you as your choice of being vaccinated. But know that not only does your choice impact you, it also can impact others around you. Just because you may not have significant side effects to COVID, you could expose somebody else that has significant side effects. I have watched a lot of my students that have graduated, especially the ones that graduated recently and went into the pandemic. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of change in their heart because they have been so overwhelmed with watching people die minute after minute after minute. And it just was so sad. And we need to give them some life back. Being that frontline worker really has given a lot of people post-traumatic stress.
Mhm.
Front lines are front lines. It doesn't matter if we are at a war in another country or in a war in our own country against a virus. It has really changed people forever, and it has brought a lot of sadness into the world, and it has changed people, not in a good way, that they will be forever scarred from this experience.
And so what people like me can do, and people in my class, and anybody I run into, we this has been such a disempowering time this whole last year. So many options are taken away. People's lives are on hold, like precious relationships are lost, lives are lost. But I'm not high risk. I'm young-ish. I'm not immunocompromised. It's easy for me to stay home. I have that kind of privilege. I can do what I need to do. But I also could get vaccinated to help all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And to help reduce the suffering that everybody experiences.
Absolutely.
I certainly don't want any of our students to begin their healthcare career being challenged by what might very well be in other people's control.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Agree.
thank you so much for taking your time today.
Absolutely. I would love for anyone, if you want to volunteer out at the clinic site, we are outside, we're under tents.
Mm-hmm.
We can always use individuals to help with writing.
Mm-hmm.
We call them scribes. They write down our the person's name, they write our initials, like they help significantly in keeping everything moving faster. Please reach out to me. I will find a spot for you. If you want to volunteer, you don't have to be a nursing student. You don't
Mhm.
have to have medical experience. We can train you to be a vaccine educator. We can have you be our writer or our
Mhm.
scribe. You can be a runner. We can always use help, and it would be it would be life changing. It really would. You will see the gratefulness in
Mhm.
every single person that comes through that line.
I mean, I will volunteer to do some writing in a hot minute, and I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. And I'm sure some of our honor students might be up for something like that as well. Well, thank you again so much.
Absolutely. I
And
appreciate it.
better times ahead, hopefully. And yeah, I hope if you are watching this that this has answered any questions you have, and please reach out to me afterwards, and I can get a hold of Daisy for you, and we can go from there. So thanks.
Thank you.